Sponsored by NordVPN. Hey everybody! Welcome to the beginning of the downward spiral! Do you yearn for a time when Star Wars was a little less complicated and we could all just be united in hating everything in it for no reason? Well, frankly, I think that's a little weird and I don't really care about that myself. I just remember that no matter how bad or arguably campy the movies might have been, the early 2000s had some amazing Star Wars video games. I'm talking Pod Racer, the KOTOR games, the Rogue Squadron trilogy, and my personal favorite of all the Star Wars games ever made. No, it's not the original Battlefront games, but those are really good too. I'm talking Star Wars Empire at War. Charl? Yeah, what's up? If we're giving up on quality analysis, do you want to start doing stupid little skits to create an unnecessary plot arc between videos? That sounds really stupid. Yeah, sure, why not? Alright! Wait, what do we do now? I guess we could go to the store or something. Okay, now what? Well, we wait for something to happen and then cut it off in order to spread 20 minutes worth of content over 20 videos. Yeah, okay, this sucks. I'm getting my stuff and leaving. Let's get back to the video. Once upon a time, there were some cool dudes who were in a game development studio called Westwood. They made a game called Dune 2, which essentially pioneered the modern real-time strategy game as we know it. Westwood made a really cool series called Command and Conquer, which got them a lot of attention as they were really good games. A little too much attention though, as they got acquired by the eldritch entity known as Electronic Arts in the mid-90s. EA did, EA stuff. I'm not gonna beat that dead horse because we all know what they do, and believe it or not, this is the good ending of an Electronic Arts takeover. Eventually, as Westwood was being flesh-crafted into EA LA as EA continued to EA everything in sight, a bunch of cool dudes from the Westwood office broke off and formed their own studio called Petroglyph. What was Petroglyph's first project? To make an RTS for LucasArts that captured Star Wars as best as it could be captured, and hot damn did they pull it off. Welcome to Star Wars Empire at War, the RTS where it's Empire versus Rebels, and yes, you get the Death Star as an endgame weapon. Empire at War is an RTS on a galactic scale with skirmishes in both space and planets. Why does saying that word cause me pain? Whatever, we'll deal with that later. Empire at War straddles being both a real-time strategy game and a bit of a grand strategy game, as you've got to manage your economy on the galactic scale if you want to have any hope of building the kind of fleet you need to get stuff done. This was my jam back in the day. When I was young, I watched my dad play all his RTS games like StarCraft and the Warcraft trilogy, but Empire at War was my first RTS. I still have the original boxed copy I got in 6th grade on my shelf over here, but unfortunately I lost the first disc and the really cool cardboard foldout showing you all the tech trees from both factions. I honestly can't tell you how much of this game I played because back in the day, we didn't have digital storefronts that counted our hours for us, but I know that I pretty much exhausted every possible scenario in Galactic Conquest over the course of middle school. Empire at War is strictly OT, at least for the base game. You've got the Empire and you got the Rebels, and the Empire specializes in having massive, overpowering units that can dish out a lot of firepower really fast because there's no better way to show a group of ragtag dissidents on a shoestring budget that you mean business by burning your shields out to indiscriminately carpet bomb entire city blocks. The rebellion focuses on guerrilla, hit and run tactics designed to let you cheese your way into a free galaxy. There isn't really much more we can talk about just yet though with the faction differences, because the real differences are going to come out in the campaign and Galactic Conquest mode. For now though, let's go over the bread and butter of your RTS game, which is the skirmish battles. There's not much to go over here aside from how Rebels have it easy in the early game since Empire does not have any anti-vehicle units on the bottom tier of their tech tree, and a lot of the early game vehicles are so fragile that a combination of a couple squads of Rebel Plex soldiers and a single AV turret are more than enough to take out an entire squad of EMP vehicles before they can do any damage. The closest you get to anti-vehicle weaponry are the speeders that are essentially like, they just instantly die before they can even get their bombs off, and also you've got your TIE Maulers, which can straight up self-destruct on enemies, which can take out a vehicle or two if you're lucky, but I personally prefer to use them to indiscriminately run over infantry units, because they can do that. Where the Empire shines, however, is that as soon as you get out of the early game tech, everything you have is going to be better than the Rebellion's version of it. Empire MBTs are stronger than anything the Rebellion can field, and AT-ATs are essentially walking bases complete with garrison units that are only really hard countered by snow speeders, which are stupid situational, and a single anti-air turret on the map makes it a bad idea to field them. Outside of that, it's an RTS skirmish. Build your base, make your dudes, get those control points or whatever. It gets interesting elsewhere. Now for the fun stuff. Empire at War has, and most likely still has, some of the best space-based combat battles in all of RTS gaming. The only real contender I can think of is the Homeworld franchise, but that's on a whole different level. Here the Empire is advantage almost all of the time because their ships are actually good, and even the most basic stuff has garrisoned fighters inside of them, meaning that you don't have to waste your money and reinforcement points bringing like fighters and bombers into the fight. Space battles are less about control points and more about maneuvering your ships into a good position to outflank the enemy, scuttle their fleet, and turn their space station into a salvage operation. You do this by hitting hardpoints on their ships. Almost all ships in Empire at War are made out of a series of hardpoints, from their turbolaser batteries and hangar bays to the important stuff like engines and shields. Space stations have all these too, and you can be put in a really bad spot early on if you lose your shield generator or hangar in the early game. The bulk of your strategy is going to be centered around what do you hit first and how are you going to hit it. Shields are always a good option, but taking out the hangar bay first can be a good way to get a long-term advantage. It's a ton of fun to get your big ships in position and just set them off on an attack maneuver while microing fighters so that you can get your bombers into taking out vital structures in the enemy fleet while space debris is flying everywhere from the cannon fire. Now that you know the bones of what you'll be doing, let's talk about the campaigns. The campaigns are a primer for Galactic Conquest mode and have a story that is essentially the plot of A New Hope plus a little bit of what happened before to facilitate the action. This is where you get to see what really makes the faction special. Empire at War does a good job of making both factions operate in a unique way. The Empire has to build research facilities and develop their own tech. The Rebellion uses their hero unit C-3PO and R2-D2 to sneak onto planets and steal stuff from the Empire. The Empire makes money by taking over and constructing mines on planets, which the Rebellion can do, but they don't have the kind of manpower to hold a ton of planets in the early game, so their best bet is to hide out on a handful of planets and hire smugglers to steal credits from Empire planets. The Empire can do this too, but it's far more effective for the Rebellion to do. The Empire gets massive flying cheese wedges of spaceships that will have a ton of garrison fighters, making space-based offenses a cakewalk. The Rebellion gets a bunch of crappy, ineffectual frigates that have a hard time taking out anything bigger than a corvette, and they have to manually make their own fighters, but at least that means their fighters have better stats, so they'll last about 3/4 of a second longer than Empire fighters once they're in range of a corvette. The Empire campaign is the story of the Empire's discovery, and in this setting, eradication of the budding rebellion, where within 20 minutes of the intro crawl, you'll be committing atrocities that will earn you a sternly worded letter from the Space UN, but then Palpatine dissolves it. But wait, there's more. No, not the war crimes. I mean, yes, you're playing as one of the most iconically evil empires in all of fiction, so there'll be plenty more of those, but you get what I mean. The campaign scenarios aren't very hand-holdy, and it's not a mission-to-mission type deal. Instead, after you complete your story missions, you're free to manage your economy by building space stations, factories, and combat units on a galactic scale, attack non-essential planets that are controlled by either Rebellion or the Consortium, who aren't much of a threat in the base game, but we'll see more of them later, and your battles will be decided by how well you prepare your invading force before setting out, and if you manage to set up space superiority before you launch your land invasion, allowing you to call down bombing runs, which can very easily decide battles. But don't take too long, because in campaign mode, the enemy will launch retaliatory invasions against you, and if you haven't built up a good space station or put up shield generators planets, oh, I hate that word, you're gonna have a bad time, let's just say that. You can actually fail the campaign pretty easily if you aren't careful, and it becomes a careful balancing act of building up your own planets while also building up a strong enough fleet to take over other planets. This is the kind of mode for the Empire. It's build a big fleet, crush the space, build an obscenely large land force, crush the land battle. I actually found it was a pretty effective strategy to just keep the Rebellion off me while I steamroll their space stations, and then just park space fleets on top of Rebellion planets so I could take the time to build up Empire land forces, because the Rebellion can't invade you or even build up a fleet if you have something parked over their space station. They just can't move lest you shoot them out of the sky. As for the plot itself, it's pretty Empire-y. You start with dealing with some rioters on planet wherever the hell this is, and then after leveling an entire city, it's off to Kashyyyk to put down a riot at your labor camps with extreme prejudice. Meanwhile, Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader are being pissy about some sort of side project they got going on, and this other guy wants me to check out his cool new walker, and it's pretty nice. Then we find out that the rebels learned about the super special project through some leakers, and Palpatine has a little fit and single-handedly kills everyone in the city the leaker happened to live in. I wasn't kidding about, like, the crimes against sentient life thing. Essentially, every other mission in the Empire campaign is you committing some sort of atrocity against all sentient life, working your way up to the big one. The Death Star is the biggest I win button you could possibly have in a video game. All you have to do is wait a little over a minute and you win the land battle. And every other battle that's ever going to take place on that planet. Yeah, sure, they can retake the space station and build something on it, but there is no bigger flex than turning a planet into an asteroid mining operation. Once you get the Death Star, the entire game becomes, hey, just take out these last 5 planets and you win. And I'll admit you're bored of combat, so you blow them up because Empire battles on land suck. Now for the Rebels, who play entirely different from the Empire on a galactic scale. If you try to build big fleets like you did with the Empire, you are going to have a very bad time as your fleet gets smashed to bits by the giant gray Doritos. Where the Rebellion really shines are their raids, which allows you to take 3 individual units, which you have specialized units specifically for this, and bypass all space-based security and just get right on the planet and start doing damage. Which once you start getting the proper hero units, this becomes a really easy game. Empire hero units kind of suck, by the way. It's better to use these raids to wear down planets until they can be easily taken over with another raid because screw it, the infiltrators are effective. Remember how we said that once you're out of Tech 1, the Empire pretty much beats everything in the Rebellion unit for unit? Well, yeah, you're really gonna start feeling that here. It is absolutely not in your best interest to ever do a traditional invasion on a planet. However, the infiltrators are stupid cheap compared to all other units, so a squad that costs you at most 300 credits with the right micro and maybe like another 500 credits absolutely tops for building turrets on controlled pads, you can essentially trade your 400 to 800 credits worth of infills and spamming AV turrets for 5,000 credits worth of the Empire shit that you just trashed. What's even better is that you can pre-build your trios of infiltrators for raids, and even if you fail the first or even the second raid, you can just keep on hitting Empire bases faster than they have time to rebuild all the stuff you blow up. And now comes the best part. You've effectively taken over an entire planet with like half a dozen dudes, and the space station above that planet goes bye-bye, costing the Empire even more credits. Any non-garrison ships the Empire might have had over an infiltrated planet are still gonna be there, which unfortunately means you can't move any land units on or off planet to quickly fortify it, but not to worry though. You can still build up a base on the surface of the planet, particularly an ion cannon. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. The Empire is probably gonna try and take back that planet you just stole out from under them, but even if they do it before you fully build out your base, by the way, always build your garrison stuff first, they're going to get absolutely clowned on. Remember how we built all those turrets as we were taking over the planet during our raid? Well, turrets persist through the campaign until a planet is taken over or it is completely destroyed, including the ones you built during your initial landing around the landing zone. It's hilarious to watch as scores of Empire tanks get destroyed before the landers are even done offloading them, and the Empire ends up losing the battle and like thousands of credits worth of heavy vehicle tanks thanks to like 80 credits of AV turrets left over from when you microed the place to death. Then when you're good and ready, you can bring whatever fleet you wanna into the space above the planet, and you can win handily because the Rebel surface defense weapon, the ion cannon, will stun a flagship for longer than the cooldown on the ion cannon is. This is the only time you're ever gonna be winning space battles in campaigns or conquests as a Rebellion, by the way. Even the Mon Calamari cruiser, the biggest thing the Rebellion can build, has a hard time slugging it out against Empire ships, and you really need that home field advantage with ion cannons or a whole space station to back you up if you want to take out a Star Destroyer. Meaning that if you want to take a planet, you gotta sneak down there, take it over, and build up those cannons underneath the Empire fleet, and then hit whoever's still hanging out over the planet with your stolen home field advantage. Based on the special missions that the Rebellion has, it's also clear that more thought went into the Rebellion campaign versus the Empire's campaign, and the hero units for the Rebellion are more unique looking, with Captain Antilles' unique ship and Mon Mothma's benefit actually being really helpful for setting up planets in the early game, which yes, the Emperor does the same thing, but you don't get palps until like mid to late game in the Empire campaign, so by the time you can use his benefit to knock off 25% of anything on a planet he's on, you've already built most of your stuff. It's like, why bother? A happy side effect of having Mon Mothma from the very beginning of the Rebellion campaign is that by the time you get to the mid-game, thanks to all the money you're saving on building stuff, you are stupid rich. The Rebellion story does a similar thing to the Empire story, except now you're playing as the Rebellion leading up to the events of A New Hope, and there are a lot less atrocities being committed as most people on most planets are aligned with you. Therefore, you're not going to be bombing their homes. The Rebellion has a lot more unique missions, and I found myself playing a lot more of the missions as the Rebellion in my most recent go-round because raids are just so much fun, and it's a lot more interesting than steamrolling bases as the Empire. The campaign ends with you literally just pressing an ability button on Luke Skywalker to destroy the Death Star, which is a big letdown though. There's one flaw about campaign mode that I should bring up before we go further, and it's the auto-resolve. Auto-resolve functions on some sort of insane moon logic where you can dive into a fight with a far larger force and still lose if you hit that button, attacking or defending. Or, in other cases, you can start a fight that you have no hope of possibly winning, but if you hit the auto-resolve button at a certain point in the battle, the game just hands it to you. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I want to guess that each unit you bring in has a certain weight to it, and that certain units, namely garrison units that you don't actually need to produce but are part of your base's building, have 0 weight assigned to them. I found that a lot of the battles I suddenly won with auto-resolve were the ones where I was dug in attacking a place, got impatient, and then when I hit the button, all the bad guys suddenly exploded. I know it can get boring to fight every single battle in a campaign, and I'll admit I auto-resolved the final matches of my Empire campaign, but just be really careful with auto-resolve unless you've got a lot of cash and a lot of dudes already built up to spare. So you've been through the campaign. Congratulations. Now for the real game. Upon letting the credits roll, you'll be taken to the Galactic Conquest setup menu where you pick your scenario for GC. This is where the real game starts. You're going to be using everything you learned in campaign to wage war on a galactic scale, but you won't have the guide rails of the campaign gating off other planets and tech until you do certain missions. Everything is available to you from the moment the game starts. Right out of the gate, you're in a balancing act between teching up and building fleets to secure your planets, as the other faction isn't going to be wasting any time in attacking you and will take half your planets in the first half hour of the game if you aren't doing anything to defend your holdings. You'll still get missions, but these are more like Radiant quests along the lines of attack this planet or hire a bounty hunter to remove an enemy hero unit, and you don't even have to do a specific one. Also, you get all your hero units from the start of the game, meaning that you've effectively got a couple Jedi and a boosted capital ship ready at your disposal from the start of the game, but be careful, the other guy has them too. Galactic Conquest feels like it's a sequel to Battlefront 2's Conquest system, but action was traded for way more depth. Fielding and position are now a whole lot more complicated than just clicking build fleet, and every planet has a strategic value beyond just its position in the galaxy and a smidge of income. Some planets will allow you to build much more stuff on them than others. Some planets are capable of producing capital ships because, let's face it, you're gonna need a special facility to build something as big as a Star Destroyer because, as I understand it, those are like a mile long. And every planet has some sort of unique bonus you get for holding it, such as reduced cost for certain units, having a terrain that makes it impossible to see what the enemy has built on it, a damage boost for certain types of units, or they can just give you a crapload of credits towards your income for the act of holding it. It's totally in your best interest to go after certain planets early on, like the one that boosts damage for fighters if you're playing Rebellion, or Kuat if you're playing in the Empire and want to rush tech to Star Destroyers. I can't tell you how many hours I played of this as a kid, but I can tell you that all the best parts of a strategy game and a grand strategy game are mixed together here, and this is something that you should really pick up if you're into that. And I almost forgot the best part of this game, the battle cam. You know that really cool scene you get on the title screen when you first open up the game with this cinematic camera of all the ships going at it? Well, you can do that anytime in the game. This is actually pretty dangerous too, because you'll get sucked into watching all the ships on or land units go at it, and you totally forget that you occasionally need to give them orders or else they'll die. It does look pretty cool though when the Star Destroyer goes boom. I really wish more games had stuff like this, because even if it has the potential to make you lose from being so taken in by the spectacle, this is the best thing ever, and I just love setting up big fleets to watch them go at enemy bases. Let's take some time to give a little love to our sponsor for their glorious gift of rent money, NordVPN. NordVPN allows you to browse safe and secure on the internet, which is becoming an increasingly scary place by the day. I would know. I've been to twitter.com. NordVPN helps you by creating a secure tunnel that allows you to access the internet without fear of packet sniffers, your ISP, or government forces snooping your data, and lets you browse free of region locking on a free and open internet as it was intended. You know, if the Rebellion had used NordVPN, they might have been able to avoid getting all their transmissions intercepted, and things might have gone a little better for everyone involved. Regardless, NordVPN offers you unparalleled protection with coverage for up to 6 devices on a single account and supports PC, Mac, Linux, iOS and Android, and even some smart TVs. So go on down to nordvpn.com/charlatanwonder and get the 2-year plan with an exclusive deal plus 1 month free. It's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. That's right, even if you don't like NordVPN's protection for any reason at all, they'll refund you your money, no questions asked. It's that secure. So click the link in the description and get started browsing safer today. And then we've got the expansion to Empire at War. Forces of Corruption. Forces of Corruption was a big boy expansion pack in the days before content DLC was a thing, and for all intents and purposes, it's an overhaul to the game. A lot of stuff that always bothered me about the first game, or the base game, whatever you want to call it, gets fixed, such as allowing you to place your buildings where you want them to be in the galaxy overview screen, so your garrison unit producing buildings are inside of your shield generator, and now you can select a ship from your fleets to always be spawned in first, which isn't quite what I wanted in the form of like, let me individually summon in my fleet so I can build my own fleet composition, but I'll take it. What we're really here for is the Zahn Consortium. The Consortium is a new faction that used to be random third-party enemies you'd find organized into a single criminal enterprise that works almost entirely in underhanded tactics, where they'll send out their agents to corrupt planets of both Empire and Rebellion variety. Their tactics include, but are not limited to, kidnapping, piracy, setting up black markets that serve as their tech tree, wait, I don't think I'm allowed to say that word thanks to the algorithm. Extremely disadvantageous employment opportunities, and employing women, which according to all these 15-part, 3-hour-long videos about Star Wars in my recommendation feed now, makes the Zahn Consortium the actual worst for getting overly political and ruining Star Wars. Never mind that you do the no word employment thing and you get access to a unit that's essentially one of the guys from Jabba's palace with a sack that chucks an Ewok laden with explosives, according to the description. Like, I wasn't gonna cross that. I did not recruit this unit because even I have limits. Oh boy, do I sure hope I get one of those 4-hour-long response videos to this 1.5-minute-long segment of my video, because that would frankly be the funniest thing ever. I already got a 2.5-hour-long, quote-unquote, response to my Doom Eternal video, so the only way to go is up, boyos. The Consortium thrives on corrupting planets rather than taking them over. This can make things a little troublesome at times because your galactic supply cap is tied to how many planets you overtly control, and eventually you will have to invade someone nearby to get your hands on some production capabilities, but your stuff isn't nearly as good as the Empire's or even the Rebellion stuff for that matter. Your capital ship's special ability is to blow itself up, and I found out about that the hard way after using the hero version that gets a cool gun and wondering why the focal point of my attack group just went boom in line with the fleet. On top of the immediate benefits you get from corruption though, you also get stuff like how any corrupted planet will tell you what the faction that holds it has built on it and how many units are stationed there, but you don't have to fight them. Corruption also grants you the benefit of letting units pass through unfriendly spaceways without initiating combat, and hell, you can even just leave a fleet on top of someone else's planet and you don't have to fight them unless you want to. You can also sneak through without corruption if you just don't have the defilers on hand, but you've got to pay a lot of cash and bribes to pass by unattacked. Out of the now 3 campaigns in Empire at War, the Consortium's is the most fleshed out, and you get to do a whole lot of stuff with your new mechanics, and there's a story here that lets you check out more of the expanded universe legends now, like shaking down Mandalore, moving in on the Maw to use as a base of operations, and stealing the Empire's stuff while he's on Endor. Wait a minute, guys. You know what's in the Maw, right? Maybe we should stay the hell away from it unless we want to wake something up, which I don't think the Consortium has the resources to deal with. The campaign ends on one of the coolest high notes I've seen in a Star Wars game, where you steal a friggin' Eclipse-class Super Star Destroyer, which lets you press a button on your UI every 15 seconds to remove something from existence. Then Then Tiber, Zahn, and Yuri look at all the money they're making now that the Empire have fallen and the rebels have no idea what to do, while Silri, the Night Sister you met the other day, runs off with the MacGuffin that everyone forgot about 2 missions ago, and oh hey, look at that, one of Darth Revan's lost armies frozen in carbonite. God, I wish they made a sequel campaign to this. Unfortunately, there are a few setbacks in Forces of Corruption. Primarily, the voice acting is much worse than in the base game and has a bad case of, hey, who's free in the office right now syndrome, which can really pull you out of the story. The other thing is that it's clear Petroglyph just got done playing Frozen Throne right before making this expansion, as there's a lot of hero units on a confined map with no building type missions, where if someone dies, you have to start all over, which is the worst thing to take from Warcraft 3. Everything else makes up for these though. But obviously, we're not here for just the campaign. We're here for a better version of Galactic Conquest. The map has been redone with new planets and new travel lanes that allow for some interesting maneuvers. Also, the Empire, Rebel, and Consortium starts are now much more different than in vanilla, where the Empire starts as a faction with by far the most galactic control, but also has the most to lose, as they'll be stretched pretty thin with both the Rebellion on one side of them and the Consortium on the other. The Rebellion will be scattered and heavily reliant on raids, which now the AI will actually try and do on you, and the Consortium will be tucked into a corner of the map where they're hard to reach and able to easily start corrupting everything in sight. This is bad for both the Rebellion and the Empire, as removing corruption costs a lot more than spreading it does in the first place, and you'll need to use your hero unit to get rid of corruption, meaning it's hard to put them in one spot for long enough to build out a planet on the cheap. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot, you'll need to remove corruption fast, because once a planet is corrupted, the Consortium's defilers can just straight up destroy a building that you've built on the planet from the galaxy screen, which can get costly really fast. There's one thing that the Empire does get now that helps them out now that the Rebellion's got some new toys too, and the Consortium is going to be the biggest pain ever. A super unit in the form of the Super Star Destroyer. While unfortunately you can't build the Eclipse class in vanilla, you still get the Executor class Super Star Destroyer, which is so goddamn huge, you have to have it pointed out at a certain angle and then zoom out as far as possible on the map if you want to see the whole thing. Like seriously, this thing takes up a third of the map whenever you deploy it. It also has a comically large amount of HP, lots of guns, and the ability to summon an infinite amount of fighter units. The Republic also gets a super unit that you can summon in the form of this guy who's got a literal version of a land ship, complete with hard points and the ability to garrison units inside of it, but it still goes down from a couple AV turrets, which totally sucks. Also, if you're wondering, the Consortium super weapon is crime. But did you think we were done after going over the game and its expansion? No! We've still got the mod scene. The mod scene is absolutely nuts. It is completely batshit doo-doo insane psychotic. People have been modding Empire at War pretty much since it launched, and now all the good stuff is available for easy access on the Steam Workshop. There's a mod for just about everything, and some of these mods are larger than the base game itself by like a multiplicity. Some of these mods are so prolific that the mod for adding the Eclipse Star Destroyer from the Forces of Corruption campaign as a buildable and deployable unit in-game is used as the main picture for Wikipedia's article on the Eclipse. I've always known that the Star Wars fandom has been a lot of things over the years, both good and bad. But one thing that's been consistent is the dedication and prowess of Star Wars game modders. I made the mistake of accidentally having more than one Stormtrooper skin pack on my XCOM 2 playthrough, and the sheer amount of styles and variations they had for every Storm and Clone Trooper was more than enough to bring my RTX 3090 16-core processor, 128 gigs of RAM PC down to its knees and chug. Then of course we have all the crazy total conversions like Galactic Conflict, which is Battlefront before Battlefront. I think that was Battlefield 1942, just totally transformed into a Star Wars game. Empire at War's modding scene is the best example of this, as the size and scope of some of these mods is just unrivaled. Let me give you an example. I decided to try out one of the total conversion mods, Fall of the Republic, a 3.5 gig download by the way according to my Steam. Fall of the Republic is a total conversion for Empire at War that sets it in the Clone Wars era, and yeah, it's nuts. Total conversion doesn't quite cover it. This is like an unofficial sequel to Empire at War, where every last element of the game has been expanded upon, and oh god, there is so much stuff going on in the UI, there is no way you're gonna be able to jump into this and without missing a thing. Like, I tried. Like, on top of your basic economy, you've got all sorts of like stuff like agriculture, trade ports, the approval rating of the Senate, or I guess the banking clan or whoever the CIS people are. It's I'm doing my campaign campaign to see Republic. Oh yeah, and by the way, the map is obscene. I thought it was some sort of typo when I clicked on the large map and saw how many planets there were contrasted to what I saw in the preview, but no, the preview was wrong because there are so many dang planets in this conversion that the preview doesn't know how to show them all. The map is just so dang huge, there is no way to effectively look at it without like using the mini-map to jump around, and there were times when I was getting invaded and I couldn't even find where the heck the planet under attack was thanks to the sheer size of the map proper. The battles are no exception too. All the space maps are much larger, which also gives you time to actually put your fleet into position before the invading fleet gets to you, like an actual naval battle, and you have all these new maps with land combat, and they are nuts. There are an absurd amount of battle droids at any given time, and everyone's got like 5 hero units on the map. Even on easier difficulties, there's just so much going on, and everything is happening all at once, and oh god, I don't know what's happening anymore. I just know that I need to invade it all. I should probably mention 2 things by now. One is that this game is old. It's running on an engine from the early 2000s and can't comprehend more than 4 gigs of RAM. Creating a save in vanilla can take in upwards of 6 or 7 minutes, and while I did okay with the mods myself, I've heard stories on the support forums of it taking upwards of 30 minutes to generate a new save in these total conversion mods. Don't get too spooked though. Once the save is created, it'll only take up to a minute to overwrite it, and it's a perfectly valid trick to just overwrite an old save from one of your old campaigns to save yourself a lot of time. The second thing is that Fall of the Republic is not the only total conversion. It's one of many. There's a total conversion for the Thrawn's Revenge campaign, an Old Republic conversion, a like sort of general post-Battle of Endor conversion with a bunch of splintered factions, a complete remake of the base game that makes it look like something that came out in the last 5 years, and while I couldn't find it on the workshop, there apparently is a Yuzhang Vong invasion conversion. Update, I actually did find it. I just got it mixed up as the one that is post Return of the Jedi that is not Thrawn. It's the Vong one. And also, funny thing, there are total conversions to make this game, I believe, Halo, Stargate, and a bunch of random other like sci-fi properties, but I can't find any conversions or even mods to put anything from the sequel trilogy in. Funny. Some of these mods are so big that they have like entire series of sub-mods to mod the mods because why not? And of course we've got mods for just about everything else. Want to have the Consortium be reduced to an ineffectual speed bump in your Republic versus Galactic Empire Conquest on expansion? There's a mod for that. Want better AI that doesn't just shoot at the ground all the time because the game never taught it how to like aim up and down? There's a mod for that. Want a continuous stream of income instead of waiting for days to tick by? Mod for that. Individual units like the previously mentioned Eclipse class? You got it. So I gotta wrap this up or I'm never gonna get around to the next videos and I'm gonna get sucked into this Clone Wars campaign. One of the most astounding things about Empire at War is that it is still getting supported 15 years after the fact. I was in for quite a shock when I reinstalled this and booted it up on Steam to find that after all these years, while the game does default to its old 4:3 resolution, it has native support for 4K 60. Empire at War has been getting a steady stream of patches over the years, with the most recent being of January of last year for some QOL stuff. If I had to guess why we haven't seen anything recently, I'd say it's a combination of operating systems not advancing enough to where the game needs to be updated again, and also because there's a high likelihood that someone at Petroglyph knows that every time they put out a big patch, the modders gotta scramble to get all the stuff working again, and some mods just over the years don't get supported anymore because their creators have moved on with their lives. I don't even know what I'd want to see in a sequel to Empire at War. If anything, I'd love to see a remake on par with what Petroglyph et al. Did for the first Command and Conquer games, where they just make everything look nicer and put it on a more advanced engine, and perhaps just porting the game over to whatever engine they're using for the Dune RTS so that it can, I don't know, make a save inside of a minute. Like, that's all I can really think I want from like a sequel, quote unquote, for Empire at War. It's just between the modding scene and what it already offers, it's amazing. So final thoughts on Empire at War. Get it. If you like RTS games and a bit of the grand strategy on the side, you'll love Empire at War. Yeah, there's only so much they can do to patch the game on the engine it's on, but it's amazing that they're still supporting it, and with the game alone, you're getting a ton of content to play before you dive into the mods. Some of those mods look like they might be upwards of 100 hours to complete a like Galactic Conquest in, based on what I've experienced so far with Fall of the Republic. And by the way, this game is only $19.99 when it isn't on sale. And being an older Star Wars game, it goes on sale a lot. Do yourself a favor and at the very least, wishlist Empire at War so you can like watch for a sale. All right, that ought to do it. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, and if you'd like to get season tickets to my descent into madness as my soul is slowly evaporated by YouTube's algorithm, be sure to subscribe, hit that stupid bell, and go on Twitter to follow my insane ramblings that we all call discourse. A big thank you to the saucy ones who fund these videos over on patreon.com/charlatanwonder, who all get early access to these videos among many other benefits, such as voting on the next video and cooking recipes, and that's my cat's automatic feeder. It's the only way we get him to not scream at us at night. But yeah, where was I? Video polls, cooking recipes, and all sorts of cool stuff. By the way, I'm done asking in a roundabout way, so I'm just going to say it now. Please give me your money. When you give me your money, I get to make cooler videos, and we can continue this great experiment on how much pain I can fit into one video. This video was pretty light on the pain, but I think we can do better, and we will be doing better in future videos. The Planet Side video is coming. In the meantime, please stay safe, stay indoors, wear your sunscreen when you gotta go out, and enjoy this cat video. Oh no. Oh no, is this boy stuck behind the TV? Oh no, did you climb up to the TV and get stuck? Can you get out? What if I move these decorative fake candles that run on watch batteries? Is this how you think you get on TV? That is not the correct answer. Come on, you're not that fat. Come on, come here. Go there. There you go. You almost had it. You were a silly Billy. Alright, I'm gonna have to put down the camera and scoop a boy. Because he can't figure out... Wait, can I... This is a very bad idea. Okay. You got more room. Can you do it? Can you do it? You're killing me, cat. I'm going to reach back here and then give you a little pushy push. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. See? You can do it. Why do you not want... You're an indoor cat. Is this your equivalent of getting stuck in a tree? Okay, I'm going to put the camera down and pick you up. Ah, great. Now he's mad that I took him out of his hiding spot that he wasn't supposed to be in the first place. But why are you mad? Boy. Let's play with the toy. Alright, he's been significantly distracted. What the hell, Frisk? We just took you out. Oh, twerp.